I got so many texts when COVID hit and people were a little worried about, hey, is there going to be food on the shelf, or is somebody going to be there at the other end of when I call 911? And then, of course, when the summer of civil unrest hit us a few months later, the same thing. I was getting texts and phone calls and emails from people in California in particular asking about what gun should I get, and then them being surprised that they just can't run down and just get one. Just pay cash and walk out with one the same day, or why they couldn't get ammunition sent to their house in Los Angeles. These things were a shock to a lot of people.
So you're making the movie, and as you mentioned, Chris Pratt is going to be in the movie, and Chris Pratt, who's an awesome actor, and what I think is so interesting about him is the guy has managed to stay in Hollywood, despite his politics being outside of the norm of Hollywood. How involved were you in the casting and just the creation of the movie? Because obviously you writing a book, doing it in your little operation over there, or I don't know how, I can't say little, but your very cool operation over there is very different than when you hand your baby over to Hollywood, and Hollywood may not be so in line with perhaps some of the things in the book, perhaps the type of people that you want involved, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. I didn't know what to expect going in. Just like I didn't know what to expect from Simon & Schuster going in. I thought, they might want to change everything and give me some, at least maybe hint that maybe I shouldn't be, do you really have to put this in there about the Second Amendment, or does your character really have to think this way? They have never even hinted at me changing anything. I've had complete creative control, which is amazing. But when you option something, especially when it's before your first novel even hits shelves, you're not really getting from a position of strength. And so they have all the rights, can do whatever they want. And so when you're in that position, there's a lot of trust involved. And I was so lucky that I had Chris Pratt, Antoine Fuqua as the director, an incredible showrunner. And the three of us just got together in the beginning. And what was important to all of us was keeping that dark, gritty, violent, primal nature of the book, because that's really what resonated with people and broke it out from maybe others in the genre. But the way that Chris Pratt even found out about it before it hit shelves is interesting, in that I got a call from a SEAL buddy in November of 2017, so a few months before the book's going to come out. And first he asked if I remembered him, which I did, and then he asked if I remembered what I did for him in the SEAL teams, which I did not. And he said, you're the only person that sat me down in your office, helped me through the transitioning out of the military, introduced me to people in the private sector. Nobody else did that. Always wanted to say thank you. And I said, how's it going? And he said, well, it's going great, but I heard you wrote a book. And I said, yeah, it's coming out in a few months. I can send you a galley copy. It's like a rough draft thing. And he said, yeah, I'd like that, but I'd like to give it to a friend of mine. And I said, who's that? And he said, Chris Pratt. And what was even more interesting about that is that as I was writing, I thought of Chris Pratt playing the main character. And I thought of Antoine Fuqua directing. And another SEAL buddy got it to Antoine Fuqua, who wanted it, and Chris and Antoine wanted it at the same time. So finally, Antoine called Chris and said, let's do this together. And now we're all executive producers on this thing. But it's credit to Amazon for the things that they could, well, they were concerned about a few things from the book. But really all that ended up being was concern. And once we talked about different scenes that we needed in there and wanted to have in there that the fans would want in there, they came down on the right side of it each and every time, as uncomfortable as it may have been for them. They sided with us, and it's all in there. So couldn't be happier with how that worked out.
What do you make of the state of sort of well, what do you call the genre actually? You call it like military thriller, or like what are
thriller? If you have to put it in something, it's a political thriller for the most part. But there's all sorts of thrillers out there. There's a lot of legal thrillers and medical thrillers and dystopian thrillers and all that stuff. But yeah, it's political thriller.
So political thrillers, and I think of the more in certain, like there's certain political ones that are very much in the politics part, and then ones that are a little more in the military part. I can think of so many. You mentioned Tom Clancy. I mean, I can think of so many incredible movies from the 80s, or really sort of early 90s that were just like, there were just every other week there was just another awesome movie. You mentioned Hunt for Red October. What do you make of the state of the genre right now? Because everything is so politicized these days. I find when I open up Netflix or Hulu or Amazon, for me personally as a politics guy, I'm often trying to avoid politics a little bit. That's just me. But what do you make of the general state of things? And I'm a guy that I love explosions, I love thrillers, I love all of these movies. I'm just curious what your take on that is.
Yeah, it was something that I was concerned about going in, that other people that were involved in the project were concerned about as well. Because, as we all know, if you've scrolled through any of the streaming platforms or gone to a movie recently, it seems like a lot of the movies are made for people in LA or New York, and forget about everyone in between. So we really wanted to make sure we didn't forget about everybody in between. And it was interesting in that a lot of people's view of Hollywood comes from seeing maybe a clip of the Academy Awards or a Golden Globes, and since an actor, a director, or producer on stage saying something kind of crazy, and you're kind of like, oh, Hollywood people are all totally weird, and oh my goodness, I can see where this is going. But on set, I had 350 people on set making this series. It's an 8-part series for Amazon, and I made this thing called Video Village. So the executive producers, we have our screens and we have our headphones on, and we can watch what's going on and make notes and all the rest of it. And the other executive producers told me they hadn't seen this before, but so many people on that set would come up, track me down there, and like the hair and makeup person would come in and say, hey, my son is going to boot camp tomorrow. He's a huge fan. He follows you on Instagram. Would you sign a book? And I always had a big box of books there and would sign away. Or someone would come up and say, hey, my son's going on his first deployment. Can you sign this for him? And absolutely. And so we talk about guns, we talk about Land Cruisers, we talk about knives, we talk about hunting, and just normal people talk. And what was so extraordinary is that they're so good at their job, but also they just want to put food on their family's table. And these are just normal Americans that are working hard. And we had American flags up. All the Teamsters truck had their American flags flying, and it was a special set. And people made a point to tell me that they've been on hundreds of sets and they've never felt one that was as open and welcoming and encouraging and positive and just a cool and American as this one. And I thought that made me feel good anyway.
I can tell you, as somebody that just fled Los Angeles after 8 years there were an awful lot of people that I knew that were in the biz that were waking up, you know, that were sort of lefties their whole life or were into a lot of the craziness. And suddenly they were going, wait a minute, I can't get a job because I'm a 60-something-year-old white guy, or I don't fit this diversity thing or something else, or the street that they live on was burning down and they suddenly got guns. I was one of those people in LA that didn't have guns before all this craziness. And then suddenly reality hits you in the face and you kind of change your view on things.
Yeah, I got so many texts when COVID hit, and people were a little worried about, hey, is there going to be food on the shelf, or is somebody going to be there at the other end of when I call 911? And then, of course, when the summer of civil unrest hit us a few months later, the same thing. I was getting texts and phone calls and emails from people in California, in particular, asking about what gun should I get, and then them being surprised that they just can't run down and just get one. Just pay cash and walk out with one the same day, or why they couldn't get ammunition sent to their house in Los Angeles. These things were a shock to a lot of people who just, from what you think in the news, is that, oh yeah, anybody can just walk in, you walk out with, you know, some fully automatic boom boom and stacks of ammo and all that stuff. Yet they've been voting people into office there for so long that they don't have those rights anymore. They've outsourced those to a government that is surrounded, whose leaders are surrounded by taxpayer-funded security when they're trying to take your rights away. And we see that, of course, all across the country now. But California, Chicago, of course, a couple other places, New York, stand out from the crowd in that regard. So I did get a lot of phone calls like that, and there were a lot of shocked people that they couldn't just go in and get any firearm that they wanted.
You are preaching my language, brother. Actually, I can't say who it is out loud, but when all hell was breaking loose in LA, I happened to say on the show one day, I'm thinking about getting guns for the first time. And I got a call from a major Hollywood sitcom star, a woman who would never want me to say her name on air. And she said, hey, if you need guns, let me know. And she ended up connecting me with people. And that's how I was able to get guns. Because, yeah, you're right. You couldn't get ammo either in LA because because so many people were flipping on all of this stuff. Do you feel a certain, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I said you couldn't even order it. You can't even order it and get it delivered in Los Angeles. I think that's just a county thing, but anyway, yeah, they make it extremely difficult. In the military, it would be like motorcycles on base. So they didn't want you to ride a motorcycle on base. So first they did, okay, you have to take this course. Okay, so you have to take like 3 days to take this course. So okay, you got to take this course. You have to do like you do it every year, and then you have to have gloves. You have to have shoes that cover your ankle. You have to have long sleeves, helmet, reflector vest. They started adding all these administrative requirements. And And finally, it's like, okay, you win. Like, I'm exhausted. This whole year is going to be trying to figure out how to ride my motorcycle onto base here. You're fine. You've got it. So that's kind of what what governments do to try to make it. If we're not making guns illegal. Well, you're making them administratively impossible to get, like you've done with concealed carry permits in a lot of states.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about lifestyles instead of nonstop yelling, check out our lifestyle playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, check out our full episode playlist. They're both right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.